In this video, we're going to take a look at the print statement in Python. Before we do that, we need something to print, so let's make up a couple of variables. Let's make up an hours equals 10. This is the same example we did last time. Just check to make sure there's a 10 in there, and minutes equals 45. Okay. So the simplest form of the print statement is the word print. It's a function, and functions always have the name of the function followed by an argument list in parentheses. If you've used functions in Excel, it's the exact same syntax, and actually it's the same in just about any programming language I've ever seen. You have the name of the function, and then in parentheses you have a list of the arguments that you want to pass to the function. So if I just want to print out hours, I can do it like that. It prints out the 10. If I want to print out minutes, do it like that. It prints out the 45. If I want to print out more than one thing, I can put a comma between. I can put as many things there as I want, and they'll print them out with a space in between them. Okay. If I do, we'll just do hours again since I've only got two variables. And so it'll continue. You can put as many variables there as you want to. It'll continue to put spaces between the variables wherever there's a comma. So it automatically separates them for you. However, there's a problem if I want to get the colon in between the 10 and the 45 to display 10 hours and 45 minutes. Well, then what I have to do is, this does not work, and you can probably figure out why. It's close, but we're printing three things. We're printing out the hours, we're printing out a colon, we're printing out the number of minutes. And since those are three separate things, they're going to be separated by spaces wherever we have the commas up here in the print command. Okay, well, it doesn't really look very good. We'd like to get rid of those spaces. And the easiest way to do that is probably by using what's called an F string in Python. This is the way I think you should do all of your output with a print statement. So it's the word print, and then the letter F, which I think stands for format. And then a string. The string can start with quotation marks. It can start with apostrophes. It doesn't matter. And then in curly brackets, I can put the name of a variable. And I can follow with a colon. And then in curly brackets, I can put another variable, minutes. And then I'll put a period on the end. And then quotation marks. And then close the parentheses for the print statement. And let's go ahead and hit enter and see what we get for output. And we get 10:45 with a period at the end. So how do these work? If you put the letter F in front of the string, indicating that this is a format string, then if you put something between braces, curly brackets like this, it will find that variable and it will replace what I've got selected here with that variable. Then it'll print any text that is not inside of curly brackets is going to be printed just as it is. And then we've got minutes inside of curly brackets. It'll find the variable minutes, and it will put a 45 in there. And because there are no spaces before or after the colon, it's going to print out exactly the way that we want it to. So integers are really easy to do. You just put the name of the variable, the integer variable, inside of curly brackets. You can also do strings, and they're really easy to do too. Okay, and I'm going to do printf. I'm going to hit the up arrow twice to bring up that previous printf statement, and I'm going to put name in curly brackets. So George will get substituted here, 10 will get substituted here, and 45 will get substituted here. Let's go ahead and hit enter, and it says George worked for 10:45, 10 hours and 45 minutes. Okay. So strings are easy. Just put the name of the string inside the curly brackets. Integers are easy. Just put the name of the integer inside the curly brackets. Now what happens if you make a mistake? Let's see, I do a capital N for name. Actually, I don't know why I did that. I'm just going to hit the up arrow key. get rid of this and now hit the up arrow key. Okay, and I'm just going to back up and change that to a capital N, hit the enter key, and you get the error that you'd expect to get. Name is not defined because we used a lowercase n for the variable name, and in our print statement we use an uppercase n, and because variable names are case sensitive in Python, that's not going to work. Okay, so F strings work pretty well with strings and integers. It gets a little more interesting though when we come to floating point numbers. So let's scroll up here a little bit and let's try a floating point number. Let's say cost equals 10.95 and hit enter. If I type out cost, it tells me it's 10.95. Okay, it's a little more interesting if you do floating point numbers. Let's try something like this. Cost equals 10.95. Hit enter. Just check what's in cost and it's 10.95. Now we're going to do a print statement with an F format string. Apostrophe or quotation marks here, it doesn't matter which. And I'm going to print the cost is, and then a space, and then a $sign. I want that to be there. And then I want the variable cost, so I put that in curly brackets. And put a period on the end, and an apostrophe on the end, and then a closing parenthesis to end the print function. And I get the cost is 10.95. Now, sometimes when you do this, you want to control the number of decimal places. And so then what you put inside the curly brackets gets a little bit more interesting. Let's do this. Print F and you put a colon and then the number of columns and then a period and the number of decimal places, then the letter F for floating point, and then closing curly brackets. So there's 3 extra things we have to add here. This means it'll print the number in a field that is 8 columns wide. The last 2 columns will hold the number of decimal places. To the right of the decimal points will be the 9.5 in this case, and to the left of that will be a period, and the 10 will be to the left of that. That accounts for 5 characters, which means there will be 3 spaces in between here. Now I didn't put my closing parenthesis to end up the print statement, so I'm going to do that and hit enter, and it looks like I typed something wrong. I did. I forgot to put the closing apostrophe on the end, so let's try. And it says end of line while scanning string literal. So it's scanning a string and it got to the end of the line before it got to the end of the string. So we have to put the end of the string in here. So I'm putting my apostrophe back in. I'm going to hit the enter key now. And it says the cost is, and this right here is my 8 column field. And you can see underneath the T and the parenthesis and the F are 3 spaces. And then we've got 2 digits, a decimal point, 2 more digits. So if you add that all up, you get a total of 8 columns. Okay. So this is useful if you're printing out a bunch of numbers in a row. Let's just try. Let's say I've got another variable called cost2. Okay. And I want to print cost in a field that is 8 wide and with 2 places to write decimal point. Now I want to print cost2. I'm going to do 8.2 for that as well. And we've got this line intervening here. Now, if you're actually writing a program over here in the editor on the left side, that intervening line would not be there. And these 2 numbers would line up with the decimal points right underneath one another, which is exactly what you want. If you want a comma in there, put a comma between the column width or the field width and the decimal point, and everything else is the same. Let's go ahead and hit enter now. And I meant to print cost2. Let's do cost2. And it puts a comma in there. And it turns out that if we put the comma in 2 decimal places in, looks like we've got 4 digits to the left, a comma, a period, and 2 to the right. That adds up to 8. So the biggest number I could put in here would be, 9,999.99. But putting the comma in makes it much easier to read. So it's a little trickier with floating point numbers, but it's the name of the variable, and then a colon, number of places that you want the number to occupy altogether, including leading spaces, comma if necessary, period, number of places to the right of the decimal point, and F, and then you can close the curly bracket. Okay?